Charles Soule tried to make it seem like he died, but no, no, because we need to put out a comic. So he's not dead, but he's rough. I'm going to tell you right now, he's pretty rough.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. In my opinion, the best ongoing comic series at Marvel right now, just as far as quality of the storytelling and the art, is Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky. And joining me today, Rob from Smirking Gun Reviews. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you for having me. I'm great.
All right, so if you don't know who Rob is, and if you haven't checked out his channel, I can't recommend it high enough. He has a plethora of content ranging from comic books to TV shows, movies, the whole scope of geek culture. He has a passion for all of it. He's extremely positive. If you're looking for a channel with more content about comics and all these other things, definitely give Rob a view. There will be a link to his channel in the video description. I'm also going to have a link during the end screens, and there should be a link right about now as well. If you want to check out his channel, go subscribe there and definitely check out some of his content. But Rob, I've got you here today on my channel to talk about Daredevil. The first thing that really has stood out has been the art from Marco Checchetto. What have you thought about Marco Checchetto's art in Daredevil?
His art really, it's the perfect match for this story, and it's one of the reasons why it's a shame that not more people are talking about it, because whenever Marco is on there, the book just comes alive. Everything is hitting on all cylinders. So not only do you have a really incredibly written book, he's almost like a classic John Romita to me, John Romita Jr., where the action just is incredibly done, but also the intimate moments are all really, really done, well done too. That's one of the good things about this book, is it has that great balance, and you can see it when other artists do it too. But when Checchetto arrives on the scene, whenever you see his name attached to the book, you're getting not just good writing, but you're getting like one of the best drawn books at Marvel as well.
Yeah, he's added a lot to the character. I really like that he added like MMA hand wraps, kind of just to really make him even more street level than he was before. And like you said, it's the visual storytelling. It's the way everything flows. I think it was issue 3. There's this awesome scene where Daredevil is running through the streets. He's evading the cops. You see cherries flashing all around him. And he jumps over the hood of this police car, and then he just stops in this really awesome pose. There's the entire police force right there with Wilson Fisk in the middle. If it's not the best comic page I saw in all of 2019, it's in the top 5. It was amazing.
Yeah, the way that was drawn and the scope of it all, you see all these layers to, you have so many ways to look at that image that it's so dense and deep. You look at it and you just go, okay. But then when you really stare at it, you see all the different parts to it. Like you're saying, there's the cops, there's Fisk, there's Daredevil. It's almost 3-dimensional in a way.
The cinematography, the way he's shooting it,
yeah,
you can see it, how cool it would be on the big screen when he's just standing there and he's face to face, with his main nemesis. Just excellent. Like Marco Checchetto's visuals on Daredevil just have been outstanding. I had very high expectations going into the series based on his work from Old Man Hawkeye, but I think he really took it up a notch in this one. Not to be outdone is the writer Chip Zdarsky. This is very much, it is a Matt Murdock story. It's somewhat typical of what they've done with Daredevil over the years. You come into the character, you break him down, and then you build him back up. I believe in the very first issue, he's having a battle and he accidentally kills a man. He doesn't think that he's killed him. He thinks he's being, basically set up by Wilson Fisk and the corrupt police force in Hell's Kitchen. And over the first few issues, he comes to the realization that, in fact, he killed the man while he was trying to stop a robbery. And it's about Matt overcoming that. He gives up the Daredevil persona. And there was a heartwarming conversation between him and Spider-Man. And eventually the Defenders, he talks to them as well. But, the conversation between him and Spider-Man, I just thought was so well done, to where he tries to connect with him, not just on a superhero level, but on a human level, and say, you know what, we all make mistakes, but you can't go out anymore because you're basically compromised. What did you think about that moment between him and Spider-Man?
Luke Cage is powerful. Jessica Jones has her thing. Iron Fist is powerful, but him and Spider-Man are on a different level than them. And so here comes Spider-Man, the guy he looks up to. you can tell in the way Zdarsky's writing it. And also that's great that, he just came off of Spectacular Spider-Man. And so here's that Spider-Man coming into Daredevil's universe and saying, I get it, but you're done. Somebody has to, like, you have to understand that, like, if this ever happens to me, somebody needs to stop me too. And while maybe nobody else has told you this, you're like, this just can't go on like this. You've crossed a line, but this is me helping you when nobody else really will. And hearing it from him really doubles that impact that nobody else was really telling him what he needed to hear. If it had come from anybody else, I think it wouldn't have had that much impact.
Yeah, it's just so perfectly done. And it just, like I said, it brings Matt Murdock to rock bottom. Essentially, he gives up being Daredevil. He's not an attorney anymore. He's essentially he's like a social worker. He starts having a romance with a married woman at a bookstore that he frequents, and it turns out that she's married into a big crime family. He witnesses, there's a big gang war going on in Hell's Kitchen, and we start learning some of the details. We're going to get into that, but he kind of witnesses it, an attack, this gang war attack. You have the Owly gang coming in, and he starts being kind of brought back into it, and eventually, more recently, Elektra shows up to kind of build him back up to what he was. He kind of feels like he's back in love with her, and he's making the same mistakes he's been making for a very long time. And eventually, he finds out that she wasn't just helping him; she was basically using him to steal billions of dollars.
And it's kind of classic Matt especially with relationships with women. Mm-hmm. He knew she was married, and he still kind of pursued her. And then he gets that wake-up call that she's part of a crime family, the Libris family, which is another cool thing about this book is they make the side characters interesting. These are usually throwaway characters in other books, and he makes them come alive. Him dealing with that and then bringing in Elektra when he needs some help and still thinking that she's going to show me a better way. And then Foggy's the voice of reason in this throughout the whole thing. Like, man, what are you doing with her again? Like, don't you know every time, you get involved with her, you end up making a lot more mistakes. But it's like he can't help himself. She is his relationship drug that he can't ever quite escape. She's like a relationship heroine.
So that's kind of like where the story on Matt is left off. They did give $1 billion to Hell's Kitchen, but she kept several $1 billion for herself. And it's going to lead to more issues down the road. But one of the more interesting story arcs is there's 3 big story arcs in the current Daredevil. There's the Matt Murdock Daredevil story arc. There's the Wilson Fisk story arc, and then there's a Cold North story arc that we're going to talk to you about at the end. But I want to talk about the Wilson Fisk story arc. So at the beginning of the run, he's giving up his life of crime. He's the mayor of New York, and he's making these new rules, and he's saying, I'm not part of the crime anymore. He's decided he's going to be high society, and he's given it all up, and that's kind of like one of the reasons all this gang war is going on, because he's basically released his control on everything. But he himself is basically finding out that he can't leave his past behind either, and he basically gets involved with these younger siblings called the Stromans, who are billionaires. They're like the richest people on the planet. He tries to get in close with them, and basically they treat him like dirt.
It's a wake-up call for him. His whole arc is really interesting because, you've got these 3 people having different moments and all happening concurrently, which is another great way that Zdarsky's handling this, all these spinning of plates that most people can't pull off. But Wilson Fisk, I love at the beginning of this, it took Daredevil to be dead and finding out that there's somebody pretending to be Daredevil, and he's like, I felt nothing. And that's when I realized I'm done with this. Without Daredevil, I have no reason to continue with my crime organization. Rather than he says, I have to find something else. I can't just sit still. I will never be complete. I have to find something new. And so legitimacy is his new, I'm not going to say hobby, but but just he
Endeavor.
thinks that's the next upper thing. Like after crime, what's next? Legitimacy is even more corrupt. And then thinking that he's just going to have it easy by giving up his crime family stuff and dividing everything up between the families and saying, all right, I'm going to trust you guys to not, keep the crime manageable. Otherwise, I'm going to have to shut you down. Realizing quickly that that's, with characters like Owlsley and Hammerhead, that's not going to happen it's not going to work very well. And then meeting these Stromwinds who they don't see things like he does. He at least understands the city. These people think they're above all of that. I love how it slowly starts to dawn on him. Like he tries to intimidate the governor, and then he's the one who makes the introductions, and he can intimidate the governor, but the governor's intimidated by these two wealthy people who are like the 1% of the 1%. When they have Wilson over to the house and he sees that scene in The Aviator where Howard Hughes meets Katharine Hepburn's family, and how they talk to him like he's a billionaire, but they're talking to him like he's nothing, like that. We're something above even that. And that realization that these people, like he's Wilson friggin' Fisk, right? He's used to being able to just walk into a room and intimidate anybody. And these just regular people don't even blink when he's around.
And they know he's a murderer. They know that he's a big crime lord.
Yeah.
And he's sitting at the table and they're just belittling him. All of them, they're taking their turns on him, making fun of him, basically calling him some type of rube. And he basically loses it in one of my favorite scenes of the whole story. He goes into the bathroom and murders the guy right then and there and thinks he's being real clever and cleans it up. Wesley comes in and they try to clean everything up. But basically, he puts himself in an even worse position because now the Stromines know that he's murdered somebody. They have the proof and everything, and now they have leverage on him. And eventually they basically have him beat down and thrown out of a building just to show him that they think he's trash.
Yeah. They didn't even care that he killed anybody. It's just that now you did it in our home. You brought attention to us, and now you have to be spanked. And the way they spank him is to bring in a bunch of mercenaries to beat the holy hell out of him and then throw him out a window, knowing that he's going to survive it. And now, like in the latest issue, you get that moment where he's supposed to attend this gala where they're at, and he's like, are they going to be there? And then he's like, yeah. And I didn't know where that was going to go. Was this going to be his moment to come back at them? And he doesn't do anything
because he's scared.
And it's just like, they just put him in his place. And it's such unless you're really, you have to look, you have to read between the lines. And that's another great thing that Zdarsky does is he lets you figure these things out without having to spell it out for you. That Kingpin is scared. And it's just these two nobodies, in my opinion. Like, yeah, they've got money, but they're just a couple of regular people who have power, and they've done what nobody else could do.
So the last character arc that, I want to talk about, I like new characters. And at the beginning, I thought Cole North seemed kind of bland and uninteresting. He was basically a new cop coming in from Chicago. He's a straight arrow. He arrives in Hell's Kitchen and he's going to take down Daredevil because Daredevil is a vigilante, and vigilantes aren't above the law, and he's out to get Daredevil. And basically his story arc is while he's trying to get Daredevil, he basically finds out everything in Hell's Kitchen is corrupt. At one point he gets out of line. His fellow police officers basically beat the crap out of him to teach him a lesson. And Hell's Kitchen is slowly breaking this good police officer, this straight and narrow police officer that's always there to do the right thing. They're breaking his will apart. I just think it's excellent. Yeah,
he's kind of it's a cliche, right? It's that could have been handled again in somebody else's hands to a lesser, it would be not a very interesting story. But Cole North comes in there with all the right intentions. He's just do your job. It's the law. I don't care, all these people, you've either got the cops who look up to Daredevil, or you've got the cops that are corrupt and are making money off of doing what Wilson Fisk wants. When they come at him, it starts subtly, right? And then it gets right in your face. He brings in his own, they beat up his own guy. I mean, even after they try to beat him down, right? And then Owl's guys come and kill them. And so now he's got cops' bodies in front. Like, if it wasn't already that bad, then they beat up his partner and they in the precinct and tell him, we can't do anything about you right now, but you're going to have to stop, or we're just going to start taking people out. And then they have that whole issue where the whole precinct is going to take him down, and how Matt has to be the one to come in there and save him. He reveals his identity to the brother of the man he killed in this instant, and has to, start making decisions about whether or not, like, okay, I'm starting to realize how things really work here. I think that where they're at with this character, where, I mean, Matt and him have even had a conversation in a diner, which was another great moment in this series. It's the weakest of the three stories, but saying that is doing a disservice, I guess, a little bit, because I think he's going to play a huge part in the end game for all of this.
I do want to talk a little bit more about the Stromines before we kind of finish this up, as we're talking about the current state of Daredevil. Yeah. In this last issue, we learned earlier on that the police are basically not monitoring Hell's Kitchen anymore. They're allowing this gang war to happen, and that's basically what Daredevil is trying to find out. And he finds out that it's actually the Stromines that are behind it, and he wants to know why. What's their evil plans for Hell's Kitchen? Why are they allowing this to happen? And the reveal was just so matter of fact. They could care less about the people in Hell's Kitchen. It was never about them. It's only about money. It's only about power. And they're basically allowing all this to happen. So these gang wars will happen to lower the prices on the property so they can go and buy it all up and rejuvenate the neighborhood and make a whole lot of money. What did you think about that reveal?
It's simplicity at its best. We're so used to these grand plans. We're used to these grand schemes where, we got supervillains all the time.
Yeah. Hell's Kitchen is going to be mine. They could care less. They just wanted to make some profit.
This is just business. It's so cold and unfeeling that it's at least with supervillains and grand schemes, there's a sense of stakes that are more right out in the open. And in this, it's more insidious.
They can care less. There's nothing personal about why they're doing any of this.
No. And they don't care who it affects. They just care about their body. I mean, they didn't care about the billions of dollars that Elektra and Matt stole, because in the end, that money is meaningless. And there's no such thing as bad press. Even if they found out, like, oh, this is where the money came from, it's still them not doing anything about it. Just shows, oh, we're helping. We don't mind that this money was going to all these great places, because in the end, they're still going to get what they want. It's not going to matter in the end to them that these people got their money, because eventually the whole place will still be theirs.
Chip Zdarsky and Marco Checchetto are really on their game in this series. Is there anything I missed out, or something specifically that we didn't talk about yet that you wanted to hit up before we end this?
Oh yeah, and the realization that he killed a man comes after Frank Castle takes him and thinks, oh, you finally crossed the line. You finally become like me. It took Frank Castle to tell him, like, things that he never wanted to hear about himself, to realize, I killed somebody.
Mm-hmm. It also led to just a great scene where he just grabs his shirt out of the apartment, but he doesn't realize he's put on a Punisher shirt. So he comes out and he's like Punisher Daredevil, but he doesn't know it. I put that picture on social media and everyone's like, what's up with Punisher Daredevil? I was like, he's blind. He doesn't realize what he's wearing. But it was a great shot. I loved it.
Yeah, and the way that they reveal even that is so simple and brilliant. I was like, oh, I just grabbed any old shirt. I had no idea. So it's like a great way to sell a comic, but it's just in there because it's a funny thing. It's just a normal thing. You just grab what's there. I need something to wear.
As far as Marvel comics go, I think Venom ongoing from Donny Cates is excellent. I think X-Force from Ben Percy is top of the heap as far as quality goes. But I truly do think Daredevil is the best comic that Marvel Comics is putting out. And I really wanted to say thank you for joining me, talk about the current state of Daredevil, where the story arcs are and maybe where they're going. And I really enjoyed it, buddy.
Thank you very much for having me. Love to be here all the time. Anytime you want to talk about stuff, I'm here.
All right, later, bro.
Thanks.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.